During President Biden's remarks about the Omicron surge, he said that he's given states $130 billion to keep students safe in school and encouraged states to keep the classrooms open.
The states and the school districts have spent this money well, many of them, but unfortunately, some haven't. So I encourage the states and school district to use the funding that you still have to protect your children and keep the schools open.
National correspondent Lauren Megarino is live in Chicago for us. And Lauren, are children back in the classroom at this point? We know they've had a long holiday break, but what about Chicago public schools?
Yeah, so, when you look across the country, the majority of students are back inside the classrooms, but it's really a different story as each day passes and more school districts are deciding either to go remote or to delay a return in person.
Back to school turns into Groundhog Day as another variant, Omicron, yet again tests U.S. school districts' ability to keep students and staff safe. Chicago public schools now facing criticism from the Chicago Teachers Union. The union saying the district safety plan is not enough.
The mitigations are not in place here. The communication is not in place here. Our mayor, quite frankly, is failing our students, and we want a plan that sounds like safety.
CPS offered 150,000 home testing kits to students in hard-hit communities ahead of their return Monday. But the plan backfired. Photos from last week show completed testing kits spilling onto the ground near FedEx drop-off locations. The district says nearly 36,000 tests were completed, of which 25,000 samples were ruined. 18% of the tests that were processed were positive. The CEO of CPS says schools are still safe.
There's no evidence that we know they've shown us that shutting down a district, especially when the rest of the city is open, that somehow reduces spread. In fact, Dr. White said earlier, in fact, the evidence tends to be on the other side, that we see more cases when children are not in schools.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams echoing the same message.
The children are safer in school than any other place based on the facts.
Students in New York City also returned to in-person learning Monday. But some districts have delayed reopening schools. The Los Angeles Unified District will now reopen January 11. Plus, students and staff will have to test negative to return.
Never before have we seen the world collectively come to its knees, right? And I just want to make sure that my family and I are healthy and ready to return next week.
Milwaukee Public Schools also pushing its restart date as cars lined up over the weekend for COVID tests. Seattle Public Schools delayed its return by a day to offer 60,000 rapid tests.
We gotta take more precautions because we don't want to go back to the lockdown and stuff.
Testing was voluntary. Detroit delayed its reopening for a week and a half, placing pressure on parents to balance work and kids at home.
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I have to take 3 days off because, I have to kind of babysit essentially my kindergartner, my 3rd and 5th grader to make sure they're all doing their virtual school.
Some parents are also stressed over remote learning's impact on their children's development.
At this point in the pandemic, to deny the harm that's not only coming educationally with learning loss and gaps in achievement, but also the social emotional impact of isolation for young and teenage children. To ignore that at this point in time is living in an alternate reality.
Creating delicate decisions on how to safely return to school for now a 3rd year in a row.